Well, it is Grand Prix weekend here in Montreal, and organizers are working to put the city's best foot forward this year after last year's disaster that included everything from flooding on the track to last minute orders to shut down covered terraces during the rain soaked weekend. This year, the pressure is on because a number of other locations around the world are ready to step in at a moment's notice. Which brings us now to our question on this particular segment. And I'll bring that up. Oops. And question number 3. There we go. Are events like the Grand Prix worth the public cost if they risk global embarrassment? There's a hot one. I'd love to see what you have to say on that. Eddie, well, you have a lot more background as far as the Grand Prix is concerned here in Montreal than do I. It seems to me, at least, we're here 4 years now, and I think 3 of the 4 years they've had rain all weekend or on and off throughout the weekends overall. It's been pretty wet.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, the last 4 or 5 years, the Mother Nature has not really cooperated all that well with the entire weekend. I think we had one weekend with just sun Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You know what, Gary, to answer that question directly, right? The public cost, if they risk global embarrassment, or are they essential? You know what? Look, in Montreal, unofficially, okay, Grand Prix weekend is unofficially dubbed the start to summer in Montreal. I mean, that's the way Montrealers look at it. That's the way Quebecers look at it. I'm not sure the rest of Canada, but Montreal for sure, which is essentially the launch of Montreal's festival season. It starts with Grand Prix weekend. And you know what? Are they essential? Are they essential to Montreal? Absolutely, in terms of the economical gains. In the last 5 years, I think it was anywhere between 84 to 162 million that gets brought into the Quebec economy. And if I'm not mistaken, just last year alone, there was about $9 million that was brought into the Canadian Quebec government tax coffers. That's a lot of buck. Okay, let alone the contributions to the economy. I mean, the hotel occupancy ranges between 97 and 100%. So, you know what? It really does launch the summer season, the festival season in Montreal. Hordes of tourists come into the country, both from elsewhere in Canada, from the United States, especially from across the world in Europe. So this is a very, very big thing to Montreal and Quebec. Now, this is the whole thing, Gary. We have to consistently put on a good show. As you mentioned on the onset of this segment, there are other cities just chomping at the bit to take the Grand Prix away from someplace. Okay, and they're just waiting to take over. And there are a lot of countries with a hell of a lot more spending money, whether it's private or governmentally funded, that would be willing to pay the heads of the Formula One Racing Commission money to bring the Formula One race to their country. So we have to be on our best behavior. Now, you mentioned some of the disasters from last year. So, last year, if I can quickly go down this thing, I mean, we've had the race since 1978, which was won by none other than Gilles Villeneuve, and of course, he died shortly thereafter in a racetrack accident in Italy, and the track was renamed after him in 1982. Now, there were 2 seasons that we did not have the Grand Prix here, believe it or not. In 1987, there was a promotional dispute, a legal and promotional dispute with Labatt and Molson. So Bernie Ecclestone said, you know what? Screw this, we're not racing there. Tremendous hit to the economy here during the summer, to restaurant owners and a lot of stores that depend on Grand Prix weekend to help them make or break their seasons. And also in 2009, F1 just not arbitrarily, but just said, you know what, we are not scheduling a Formula One race here. And they weren't even put on the calendar. The contract fell through, and that's because the head of the F1 wanted more money, and the government decided not to cough up the extra money to get it. which I think was a good decision at the end of the day, because what they would have paid him would have been the money we would have made here anyway. So through negotiations or whatever, we started with the Formula One races, which have been, reasonably successful. Now, last year, Gary, absolutely fiasco. It was, the nonstop traffic chaos, the orange cones all over the city with road blockades, construction going up and whatnot. Construction crews. I mean, Gary, you and I walk down St. Paul Street in Old Montreal often, because we don't live too far from there. Last year, they decided to tear up St. Paul Street, which is tourist mecca, a couple of weeks before the start of the Grand Prix season. What a mess. High-end restaurants, tourist sites, they have to walk around orange mesh, cones, and a construction site. Couldn't they have waited until after the Grand Prix weekend to do it? So, okay, fine. They finished the construction and whatever else. We got it on best we could, but it left a black eye in terms of our city's capability to coordinate around a big event like the Grand Prix. And the F1 administrators, of course, are paying close attention. And also, St. Paul Street was torn up. Last year, the paddock and the garage flooded after rain. They should not flood. The track flooded. Horrible drainage. And I think the worst that happened is Peel Street, for our listeners that are not familiar, gets closed down for making way for restaurateurs to open up patios on the streets to be able to extend their restaurant services to as many people as possible. For supper serving last year, the fire marshal comes by and shuts down all our outdoor patios. Effectively, people mid-meal had to get up and leave the restaurant because they said they deemed the facilities a fire hazard. I think 5 or 6 major restaurants got affected. And basically saying, oh, you were a few inches too close to the building. Yeah. Meanwhile, all the management, the owners of these restaurants, had permission from the city to install them exactly where they were. So an overzealous fire marshal came there and basically shut down the operation. These restaurants lost money hand over fist. And I mean, it made national news. It made international news in Europe. Look what happened to Montreal and what they did. I mean, it was such an embarrassment that even our tourism minister issued a formal apology. So these are all black eyes in terms of our capability in hosting something as major as a Formula One. I mean, this was pretty much as bad as Pastagate, and I won't go into that, but it was just as bad when we had Pastagate here. And you know what? This year they really had to do a bang-up job in demonstrating ahead of time what the Formula One race committee here in Montreal was going to do to improve the situation. I mean, there was infrastructure and drainage updates, better mobility of traffic flow, coordination of construction, and so on. You know what? I really hope they're right, because if they screw it up this year, we're not going to get this thing back. There are 3 major cities waiting on the sidelines. It's bye-bye. And Gary, I'll give them 1 strike and a half already. Number one, what do the unions here in Quebec do that represent our public transit system? The mechanics went on strike. So there is no public transit here, although they said Friday, Saturday, and Sunday schedules are going to be regular. But you never know with strikes. They can have a wildcat walkout. They can have, work to rule. Who knows? Anything to do to prove their point and disrupt access into the Grand Prix facility, which is on Ile Sainte-Hélène, Ile Notre-Dame. And this is a man-made island. There's only one way to get there. Either you're taking a boat across the river or you're taking the metro. You have no choice, or you're going over the bridge by car, which is insane at this time of the year.
And then where do you park once you get there?
Exactly. So I mean, everybody's praying that they're not going to push their strike mandate during this weekend, because that'd be a disaster to both the city of Montreal and the government of Quebec. So I'm hoping union leaders pay heed to this. And the second thing I talked about is construction. Gary, a couple of days ago, I was driving around the city. I went to do, and the places I went to, 3 or 4 different places, were not that far in between in terms of distance. So a 4-hour travel excursion for me in Montreal a couple of days ago, 3 of those hours were spent in traffic to get to 4 areas in Montreal. Pine coals, construction holes, work going on, no work going on. It didn't matter. We spent so much time in traffic. So it's already started this week, okay? Exasperated by the public transit. And the other thing I mentioned at the onset, we talked about St. Paul Street being dug up last year. Guess what they did? 2 weeks ago, right in the heart of Montreal, right in Formula One Festival Mecca, they dug up St. Paul Street again.
Yes.
So the poor merchants have to go through the same damn thing again. And the tourists coming into Montreal are going to be looking at St. Paul Street completely torn up. They couldn't have waited a couple of weeks. Seriously. So, that's a strike and a half. So I hope everything else goes well. I'm hoping the weekend's going to be very favorable for the tourist dollars that are coming into the city. And I really hope we don't lose the Formula One because of some stupid issues. So it's not been a good track record the last year or two.
Now, what I read over the last couple of days, the city said, yeah, we had some real internal communications issues between the fire department and the construction people and everything. But they assure that all of those communication issues have been resolved and the city is working much smoother now on a regular basis, never mind just related to the Grand Prix. However, I know what you're saying because Deborah and I took a walk down through St. Paul the other day, and you know how narrow those sidewalks are.
Yeah.
And you don't have a whole lot of room between the sidewalks and where the road's torn up. And I'm looking down and I see some of the restaurants with the checkered flags out, but they don't have the patios. They have no room. They can't put the patios out. You can barely get down the sidewalk if there's 3 or 4 people coming either way to get into their establishments.
And unless somebody knows there's a restaurant there, no one's going to find it. There's no foot traffic.
Yeah, there's no sign saying on this block they could at least put temporary. And maybe they have. I don't know because I haven't been down in the last day or two. But they could put temporary signs up down this. In this block you have blah 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 blah, like they've done around here when they've had Ottawa torn up and you can still access these businesses, just not by car. And some days, really not by foot.
You know when they're going to put them up? On Monday when everything is over.
We have to have faith, Eddie. We have to have faith.
I don't know, man. I'm trying. I'm really trying.
Hopefully it goes off well. Hopefully, as you say, it's the unofficial start to summer. And hopefully we get some really decent summer-like weather for this weekend.
And it's a great time to be. This weekend is this Formula One weekend is a fantastic time to be a Montrealer and to be around the Formula One facilities, the festivals, the open air entertainment. It's one of the better times in Montreal to be. So I'm not trying to scare you away. I'm just basically saying what I'm seeing here. But it's a fantastic time to be in Montreal during Grand Prix weekend, and of course the rest of the festival season with the Jazz Fest, the return of the Comedy Festival. There's just so many things going on in the city, which is why we're considered the festival capital of the world.
Yep, and just look around the neighborhood. Look at all of the festivals, weekend festivals in the Peel Basin area.
Yeah,
that's become a real going concern for weekend festivals and food festivals and everything else. Like, there's just so much happening in this city through the summers. It's just you just don't know where to look next. And not only is it a Grand Prix weekend, but it's also Father's Day weekend.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, so and they're expecting. Last year they had about 300,000 people. And this year they're expecting about 350,000. So this city is just going to be jumping.
That's a lot of bodies. That's a lot of rooms taken up, and that's a lot of food in restaurants. So you know
Yep.
what? Thank you, tourists, for coming to Montreal. I hope we throw you a wonderful welcome and a wonderful party. And hopefully we'll be privileged enough to have everybody back next year at this particular time.